So, in that same spirit, Nachmanides argues with Rashi, and he says, bamidbar rabbah, this is the Midrash, the most notable Midrash, explains it as I do. Onqelos drew his translation here not from the Lashon or the Sifah, but from the situation, as he does in many places. For example, he translates davar in 1714 as the splitting off of Korach, while in 31:16 he translates the same word as the bidding of Balaam. He translates freely rather than idiomatically in Hebrew to make the beginning of an action. He took and gathered men, he being Korach, to raise against Moshe Rabbeinu. That is, in the comparable way we might say it in English, he up and did it, right? He got up and did it. This is the correct understanding as well of, quote, Avshalom, when he was alive, had taken the Amudah, the pillar, which is in the Gei Hamelech, the King's Valley, and he erected it for himself, 2 Shemuel 18:18, which is from our Haftorah today. He took and set it up for himself. These guys, Dathan and Aviram, if you're not familiar with our Midrashic literature, I highly suggest you go and take a look. There's some interesting history about them, how they were involved in Egypt. They were witnesses to Moshe Rabbeinu's Horeg, the slaying of the Egyptian man. And because they did blah, 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 it got around, and that's when Moshe had to leave Egypt, right? He had to flee from Egypt for his life because of these guys blah, blahing. One of them, when he was out, there was an Egyptian raping the guy's wife in the morning, right? So there's a lot of interesting story in our folklore about them, okay? Okay, I'm gonna catch up with some of your comments now. Janine says, the crossroads are here, Rav. Is maintaining shalom bayit and steering clear of rebels, especially when they're relatives, and you run into them in the ancestral home and affairs? Okay, I think what Janine is asking is, how do we maintain shalom bayit in the greater sense, right, with our greater community? Because in the most case, the husbands and wives are together, right, in agreement on, most of the time, agreement on spiritually what's going on, right? So I think you're talking about extended family, right? Like maybe your brothers and sisters when you're already an adult, correct? I think that's what she's got going on there, yeah. Okay, ancestral home, fine. Yeah, the cousins, etc. Yeah, this can be a difficult situation. So of course, we don't seek to be divisive. We want to win them, right? So really, the third element here is being a qiddush Hashem, right? I know nobody can test you like a relative can test you because they know how to push those buttons, don't they? They know, believe me, I speak from experience. I know. I have some relatives who are hippy dippy, just super leftists, all the stuff you could imagine. It's like a lot of Jews are this way in the States, unfortunately. It happens in our history, right? We get wealthy, we're successful, and then we kick. Yeshurun kicked against God. It happens. Not just Jews, but all people are this way. It's the temptation to think we don't need God. Look what I did. I'm so smart. Look what I've accomplished. I made myself rich, etc., etc., etc. And then people turn from God. So the thing is, there's kind of a mixed road here, right? If they are trying to get you and your family to do sin, you make a line. You be strong. You show them that strength and that conviction, right? And we say, look, we don't do that here in this house, okay? It's harder when you visit them. If you visit them and they're kissing an idol or something, or I would say try to limit those types of visits. Whenever possible, steer it to another venue, right? Hey, let's do this at a restaurant or something, or let's meet somewhere else. It's a hard question because there's no flat answer on how to govern it. It takes a lot of wisdom, and many times there's very specific answers for specific families, right? Some families, a lot of times they get asked, we have a lot of Chinese Messianic believers, right? It's kind of amazing. And some of them, oftentimes they get these questions, well, what about, this kind of thing? There's this ancestral stuff that happens sometimes. And look, there's some cases when you can participate and some when you can't, right? And if you ever have a specific answer, a specific question, you can ask, please, Like, that's what I'm talking about. We're family, right? We're all family. So we can ask each other. Don't just burden it on yourself. Spread it out in the greater mind and say, what should I do about this situation, right? And if you need to, you can come to the elders. You can come, to any of the elders in the call. You can come to me. You can go to Annie. You can go to Tony. You can go to Daniel. You can go to Brother Tom. You can go to Brother Louis, right? You can spread it out a bit if you don't find you're getting enough wisdom with your inner circle, right? And solve it on a piece-by-piece instance, right? It's not always a whitewash thing that I can just say. But if it comes down to compromising your integrity, then it's a clean issue. We don't do that, right? And we can be polite about it. We can smile and say, oh, I'm very sorry. The way that I understand the Bible is this way. Or, my denomination, however you want to phrase it, is this way. I'm not judging you guys, but I cannot participate, right? So when you do need to draw a line, do it nicely, right? That will make it into a qiddush Hashem instead. And some of them, they might start thinking even, but that's a hard question because there really is no general one answer that fits that. Esau says the Jews in Syria were accused of doing the same, killing a Christian kid on Pesach and doing matza with his blood. Goodness, this old satanic story. We can't even eat blood, and we can't eat people either. People aren't kosher. It's so crazy. They made a movie about this, portraying Syrian Jews as monsters. So sickening. Oh my gosh, really? The government did that in Syria? Well, all throughout Russia, Tsarist Russia, this was a big thing. There's a book. Isa saw it on YouTube. There's a book that I had to read in, I think it was AP Literature in high school. And the book was called The Fixer, and it's a Pulitzer Prize winner. It's about this secular Jewish guy in Russia and what he has to go through. And anyway, you have the same story in that book spreading through. The Christians are going crazy. It incites some pogroms. Jews get killed. It's the devil. It's that same spirit. This is Talmud at its best, preached from the pulpit of the largest Messianic congregation in those days in America. Can you believe it? A UMJC congregation at that. Insanity. What people are allowed to get away with. It's us and not them. The mentality, the instinct should be to our people first. That should be the instinct, to assume, not to attack Yaakov, to assume that maybe there's something being misunderstood here. Or maybe that's one bad guy who said that thing. Not because it's a slippery slope, friends. When people start believing that kind of stuff and not being rebuked, being allowed to preach it from a pulpit, that is when the next step, the Jews are killing Christian kids and making blood into matzah. The ignorance. Have they never read the Bible? It's in the Christian translations. How to make matzah. It's not a mystery. It's not a secret voodoo Jewish recipe. But how many Jews died because of the father of lies? Yomar comments, jealousy caused Korach to robe himself in haughtiness, caused him to aspire to greatness. This is why the expression vayikach Korach should be understood as he took the fact that he was the son of Yitzhar, right, or Yizhar in English, into consideration and decided it was entitled to higher rank because of the order of the birth, right, of the brothers. It's so crazy. They made a movie about this, portraying Syrian Jews as monsters. So sickening. Oh my gosh, really? The government did that in Syria? All throughout Russia, Tsarist Russia, this was a big thing. There's a book. Isa saw it on YouTube. There's a book that I had to read in, I think it was AP Literature in high school. And the book was called The Fixer, and it's a Pulitzer Prize winner. It's about this secular Jewish guy in Russia and what he has to go through. And anyway, you have the same story in that book spreading through. The Christians are going crazy. It incites some pogroms. Jews get killed. It's the devil. It's that same spirit. This is Talmud at its best, preached from the pulpit of the largest Messianic congregation in those days in America. Can you believe it? A UMJC congregation at that. Insanity. What people are allowed to get away with. It's us and not them. The mentality, the instinct should be to our people first. That should be the instinct, to assume, not to attack Yaakov, to assume that maybe there's something being misunderstood here. Or maybe that's one bad guy who said that thing. Not because it's a slippery slope, friends. When people start believing that kind of stuff and not being rebuked, being allowed to preach it from a pulpit, that is when the next step, the Jews are killing Christian kids and making blood into matzah. The ignorance. Have they never read the Bible? It's in the Christian translations. How to make matzah. It's not a mystery. It's not a secret voodoo Jewish recipe. But how many Jews died because of the father of lies? Yomar comments, jealousy caused Korach to robe himself in haughtiness, caused him to aspire to greatness. This is why the expression vayikach Korach should be understood as he took the fact that he was the son of Yitzhar, right, or Yizhar in English, into consideration and decided it was entitled to higher rank because of the order of the birth, right, of the brothers. We know that bamidbar rabbah quotes Rabbi Levi as saying the Korach considered the fact that he was the son of Yitzhar, another name for oil, right? Well, the name comes from oil. It's related to the name for oil. And that oil always floats on top. Furthermore, he considered the fact that he was also the grandson of Kehath. Well, so was Aharon. He had been found worthy to found the family that would carry the Holy Ark. By dwelling on those points, he convinced himself that the position of leadership of the Kohathites should have belonged to him and not Elitzaphan, who was only fourth in line. Right. Aaron comes from the lower one in the line. That's what I was saying. Nice. Thanks for that, Yomar. These were the considerations that resulted in his being disapproved of his life and his future. This is according to Shnei Luchot Habarit, the two the tablets of the covenant. Okay, that's what that Chazal's nickname means. Very nice. So then we continue on. It tells us that Vayakumu lifnei Moshe, and he raised them up. This means in protest before Moshe, va'anashim mibnei Israel, and men. And Rashi explains anashim here means men of renown from the sons of Israel, the children of Israel. Chamishim umatayim, 250. Yesiyei aida kaviyei moed. Anshei Shem. These were chieftains or leaders or those who were called up. Eda of the assembly. Kirei Moed, selected by the assembly. Anshei Shem, literally men of fame, of renown. Oftentimes you see Shem, it always comes up. Oftentimes we're using it to mean renown or fame, reputation. And I don't think I put it in the teaching today, but for those of you who saw the little Aliyah Yomi I did this week, just the first 8 verses or so, I commented on the ta'amim here. There's some argument that's made from the ta'amim that show that the way that the ta'amim are placed, that the Kyrie, pardon me, where is it? That it actually, the Nasi, right? The Nasi can be interpreted to mean that they volunteered, right? So it might not necessarily mean a prince or a leader or something like this. It could mean a volunteer. This is a minority interpretation. V'kalu Moshe v'Aaron v'amru aleihem rav lachem ki kol ha'eda kulam kedoshim u'v'tocham Adonai. So now he's accusing Moshe and Aharon, rav lachem, literally much you have, lachem. You got a lot already, he's saying. For all the assembly, all together is holy. I'm sorry, we'd say, but the whole assembly is kiddushim. And in their midst is Hashem. So why do you make yourselves a nasi? Do you lift yourselves up? Al kahal, against the kahal of Adonai. Look what he's doing. This is certainly, you can see, this is Talmud at its best. It's the same spirit. Oh, one of you called out someone recently. There's this nasty fellow who's been following me around, anti-Semite. I think he's a British Israelite. We see this a lot of times with British Israelites. At first, when you meet a British Israelite, they will, that's great. Yeah. Jews, great. I love Jews. They don't love Jews. They hate Jews. They think that we are liars, saying that we're Jews and that really it's Britain, which is the real Israel. And it's got embedded in, I've studied their theology. Embedded in their theology is that Jews are nasty people who have lied over the centuries, we've stolen the birthright, etc. And really it is the Aryan peoples who are the true bloodline from Israel. Just insanity. That's right, folks. All that killing Christian kids for the blood, that was just We love to pretend to be Israel living in Europe. That was just great. That was great over the centuries, to just pretend, because all the glory of being Jewish and getting stoned and killed and all that stuff was just wonderful for centuries. This is wonderful. You can see the motive, right? It's a great motive. Just pretending, right? So that we could get all those wonderful benefits. So you can see the same lying spirit sticking out its head, accusing Moshe, who we were told in last week's Torah portion, 2 weeks ago, is the humblest man be'olam, in the universe. He's the humblest man in the universe. And thank you, Yomar's got another good comment. He says, by the way, the leader, the Nasi of the Kohathites is Elisaphan, not Korach, firstborn right. And that's in Numbers 3:30. He gives the reference for that. And actually, there's last year, I didn't do it this year, but last year I had I showed a picture, the way the camp was organized. Maybe I should have included that. Maybe I'll do it. I'll weave together from last year and this year into the several part series we'll do this week, right? The follow-up, right? So if you want to redigest and really nail down and get some more information, I'll be putting some of that back in. I'll put that picture in. And you can see the geography of the camp, the way the camp is aligned. And you see that actually who Korach's neighbors were, why he infects them, why the Reubenites take up his cause, right? And this is where Rashi comments on this: woe is he who is a neighbor to a wicked person, right? Because you get convinced, especially if he's a great talker like Korach, right? They got convinced to their peril to join him. And you can see the geography really makes it out well. They're the neighbors, right? And this comes back to what I was saying about when we fall into sin, we have to break ourselves out and instead run to our community, run to our spiritual mishpacha, right? Don't take condolence in relatives that are not believers in those times, right? You go to your spiritual relatives, right? That's what it is to hate one's brother and sister. It's not hate, it's to love less. It's to understand who a true brother and a true sister is. It's those who walk and suffer with us and take the harder way, the hard road. Those who are living in the world, they're not really on the hard road. But if you check out part 5 from last week's series, or if you stayed awake until the end last Shabbat, then you saw that it is a hard path. There's a hard path walking in the way of faith, walking in the way of obedience of Torah Hashem, walking in a way to try to emulate our Mashiach. And to keep coming back, not to end up making our spiritual neighbors Korach. Can you imagine accusing Moshe of this crime? Saying to him in Aaron, titnass'eu. This is hitpael, it's to do to yourself. Nasa, and you guys know Nasa, like the rocket and NASA carrying things up. Nasa means to carry up. Titnassa means to carry yourself up, right? As if there's no direction from Hashem, as if there were no miracles, no splitting of the sea. There's no fire coming down and consuming the Egyptians. There's no darkness and the plague of darkness. There's no time after time. The evidences are there that this is the Ish Elohim. And he has the audacity to let the devil speak from his tongue. Madua, why titnass'eu al kahal Hashem? Goodness. It's despicable to read it. I want to vomit right now reading this. Vayishma Moshe. When Moshe heard it, Vayipal. This is probably a emphatic vav, a vav emphaticum we call it. So instead of saying and he fell, probably just understand there's emphasis here. This word is in bold. When Moshe heard it, he fell al panav. Why did he fall on his face? Why did Moshe fall on his face? Did he do some sin? Did he realize, oh my gosh, Korach's right. I'm so arrogant. I always wanted to be the leader of the people. When God asked me to first do it, I said, yeah, I'm a great speaker. Let's do this. Let's do this. Make me king, God. Is that what happened? Is that who Moshe is?